And we are live.
Yay.
So yeah, uh, hey, so glad a lot of folks could join at this, given it's a Monday night in IST and evening in CET. Thanks again for joining. We have 8 attendees already. Just a quick introduction about me. I'm Utkarsh. I'm a developer evangelist at Aviyel. And what exactly are we doing at Aviyel? So basically, Aviyel's on a mission to create a scalable monetization avenue for projects. And at the same time, we are aiming to do whatever we do with that project while preserving its open source character. We believe in empowering strong, incentivized communities around projects, and at the same time making sure that we drive the project's discovery, and at the same time increasing its adoption and making sure it grows overall. And to sum it all up, at its core, we are helping open source projects scale and make them sustainable. Yeah, so that would be the best way to sum it up. Now, getting back to today's session, I'm pretty excited for this one. I've been following Manya for some time. So we have an amazing speaker with us today. Manya, a lot of us already know her. We have been trying to collab for a while now. Really glad the podcast is finally happening. I can only wait for the video to get out and people to blatantly get inspired by it. So Manya already has a killer LinkedIn profile, and a lot of folks coming from communities, especially like MLH, will be familiar with your work. But it's only fair to listen that from your side. So let's start with a very short intro about your role, where do you work, and all the stuff. What are you currently doing?
Thank you so much, Utkarsh. That was a very, very kind introduction. And I'm super glad that we can finally get this out. We've been planning for 2 months now to get a session scheduled. So yeah, I'm really glad that it's finally happening. Hey everybody, I'm Manya. I'm currently a technical student at CERN. So what I do at CERN is I'm a software engineer with the cooling and ventilation team, which works with different particle accelerators, and we add control systems to them. I'm not a control systems engineer, so I only help out with a bit of the software stuff that's going to help out the team. Along with being a technical student, I'm also a coach at MLH. So if you ever participate in MLH hackathons, you can probably find me around. So grab me up for a chat, and you can talk to me there always.
Amazing. So that's pretty cool. I mean, the introduction is pretty vague in terms of all of us. We already know your work, and we've been following you for quite a while. So let's start with the very basics, right? Let's go way back. I don't know when that was. We want to know that. So which was the first Hello World, and how were you just introduced to the world of developers? And if so, by who, if there is?
Okay. So my Hello World was quite early in my life. I was probably 11 years old, and my Hello World was basically a Visual Basic program, something that we don't work with or talk about anymore. So how I got introduced to development was that my mother owned a small software company in our town. I'm from Kanpur in India. So I was 4 when she started her company. And I was extremely fascinated by the important work that people in her company seemed to be doing. So I would really push her to teach me something. I wanted to write code. So yeah, one day we got this super thick book of Visual Basic, and she opened a basic page, and we tried to write our first program together. So while my mother is not a software engineer right now, she did learn to code 25 years ago. So she's the person who introduced me to development, and that is what I did. I built a basic small form that would help us write a story. It was a simple form, took a title, took a small description, but I still remember how I was very young and how my mother had to walk me through the whole process. But that was when I knew that I wanted to learn how to build these applications and that I wanted to code. So yes, maybe it was very early in my life, but the fascination was real. I saw it all around me, and I was like, I want to learn more about this and do more of it.
That's actually pretty unique. I mean, every journey has been unique in a way, especially if you have roots from India. I've known people talk about the first turtle kind of program. I always forget the name during the podcast. Logo, yeah.
Yes.
Logo was the first thing that was introduced thanks to your syllabus. But then this is actually pretty unique, yeah. Coming from a background of already, and especially your mother already doing it way back before most of the people around. That's actually pretty amazing.
Yeah.
That's pretty unique too. Yeah, definitely gotta clip that and put it on Twitter. Pretty unique.
She had this she had these books on Unix, and I would just be
Seriously.
like, yeah.
Yeah.
She did
Oh my
this
God.
1 year long course, and I saw her books, and I would just be like, oh my God, you used to write like these many lines of code. And till date, if I ever take out any of her books, I just cannot understand what's happening, because it's that old and it's that low
that
level.
old, yeah. That was a great sum up, and I mean, yeah, that was pretty unique. I'm still baffled by it, to be very honest, that you started so early. This is I imagine that it would start with logo too, but then yeah, that was great.
It
So,
did,
I mean,
but logo happened after Visual Basic. So that was grade 6
After,
when
yeah.
our school introduced logo. I was like, oh yeah, logo,
Yeah.
we're building like circles and triangles and everything.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Visual Basic was the killer for me.
Yeah. Amazing. So let's start now focusing on the core parts of the whole podcast and your profile basically. So you have dealt a lot with the whole hackathon community, especially when you talk about MLH, right? So how did the whole journey of hackathons begin? When was the first hackathon that you attended and you were like, okay, this is what I need to be doing. This is where I belong, and the whole community vibe of it. How did it start?
So hackathon started quite later in my life. It was after I joined university. So I did come across the concept of what hackathons were in school when I was in 12th grade, but I probably never had time, and I didn't think it was possible for me to travel to hackathons to do stuff. Then fast forward, I moved to university. I joined university in Hong Kong, and that is where one of my seniors who, so the hackathon space was growing a lot in Hong Kong. A lot of banks, financial organizations were realizing how it was a great tool to just get young people excited about fintech, because that's the craze in Hong Kong. Everything finance, everything tech. That's Hong Kong.
Yeah.
So one of my seniors, he told me that, and I owe a lot of my journey to him for the way he's guided me and mentored me throughout the first year of my university. And he told me that, you should join one of the hackathons with me. They are super fun. They're a great way for you to try to solve a problem and then present it. And I've always been into public speaking ever since school. And I loved this idea of trying to combine what we can build, how I can improve my tech skills, with being able to get in front of a large audience and talk to them. So I was like, cool, sign me up for it. Let's do one. And then he ended up organizing one in our residential college, and I did it. And it was cool. And we did one more. And sort of the flow kept on going. You win one hackathon, the money starts flowing in. Now you're even more hooked, because you want to win prizes at the hackathons too, along with meeting cool people.
Yeah.
In my first year summer, which was back in 2019, I did my first physical hackathon. We had a lot of fun. It was a 36-hour thing. And a few of my teammates did not even go back home. They literally slept on the couch for 2 nights. I'm a person who likes to shower, so I went back home and showered. But it was a lot of fun. The food was great. You meet so many people. And I would say I truly missed attending physical hackathons. And after that, I would say it never stopped. We kept on doing tons of physical hackathons in Hong Kong. Then I came to India, and I would every opportunity I had to find a hackathon, travel to it, I took it up. And then we moved on to digital, and we've never looked back since.
Makes sense. That's pretty early, especially when you mentioned Hong Kong. I mean, even before the whole podcast thing, when I was looking at your profile, I knew you would have a very strong technical background when it comes, because Hong Kong revolves around the whole tech and finance thing, right? They have their course very tied to it, and especially the hackathon space in Hong Kong, they are pretty crazy. I know about their work culture, 9 to 9, 6 to 6. It's pretty hard, but then it's pretty crazy. It's pretty admirable. Yeah. So yeah, that's crazy. So how did the whole transition to MLH thing happen? When was it that you decided that, hey, okay, MLH is doing something crazy out there? Because I think they are one of the biggest organizers when it comes to hackathons in the world. I think I don't think they are actually. They are.
They definitely are. And I got introduced to MLH a little later on, because primarily when MLH started doing hackathons, they were based quite a lot in North America. And when they started moving base to EU, and then in APAC, they started coming to India. But I was unfortunately never able to become a very integrated part in the Indian community because I didn't study there. So it was hard to do MLH hackathons there, which is why I didn't hear for it for a very long time until obviously everything went online. We came back home for the pandemic, and I started looking for more hackathons that were happening. And I realized that MLH has this whole world of different hackathons taking place in different parts of the world.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that is how I also learned about their online hackathons, and I joined their summer league. This obviously very well coincided with me joining the MLH fellowship. And when I got involved with the MLH fellowship and I became an open source fellow there, which obviously we'll cover a little later on, I was like, I love the community that we have built here at MLH. Because I would be doing the fellowship, and on the weekends I would find a summer league hackathon that was happening and I would participate. So I think for like 4 or 5 weeks I was continuously doing hackathons, and somehow I didn't hate it, even though there was a lot of sleep deprivation involved. Not healthy, would not recommend it, but I had the time of my life and did a couple of summer league hackathons. And it was I did not even know that the coach position existed or that I would be a fit for it. But then I was on a live stream with Will. We were talking about the fellowship. It was a great experience I was going on live first time in my life, just talking about our experience in the fellowship, everything that happened. And then we're backstage, we're talking, Will, we loved the fellowship, how can we get involved more? And he's like, MLH has this coach position where you can get involved in organizing more, you can become an integral part of the community. And I'm like, sign me up for it. So it took 6 more months before the application went out, interviews happened, and then in January of 2020, I ended up joining MLH as a coach. 2021, sorry. Yeah, 2021.
January 21. Yeah. It's 1 year almost. Yeah.
Yes, just finished.
1.5, 2 years journey with MLH almost.
Yes.
The whole thing.
Almost the whole thing. It's been a 1.5 year long journey. So that is how I came across this position. And when I read the coach position, it's obviously a very interesting position because you get to travel to all these hackathons, which I'm sure we'll soon be doing more of. Right now, we're not doing as much of it. But it was such an amazing position. And I was like, yes, this is the position for me. Before joining MLH or before joining the fellowship, I was not so aware of the developer advocate roles that exist, which I think is true for a lot of us. When we think we're getting into engineering, it means a desk and a 9-to-5 job. And entering this community, meeting amazing people, I've realized that it doesn't have to be that way. You can engage with people, you can talk, and it can be so much more than just, I get a lot of satisfaction from coding, but when you interact with people and you get to know about the impact of your code, it's even more wonderful.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, you pointed out everything. Even the things that I wanted to add, that was mostly covered. But
I'm sorry.
But the thing that resonated with me the most was the last part where when you said it's when you get involved in the hackathon community, it is very it is the time when you actually get to know about the roles like developer relations, developer advocacy, evangelism, and all the stuff. Because there's a lot of coincidence in that role, right? Because there's a lot of intersection between those roles, and that is even how I got to even start with the whole thing. And I've been following you since 2020, so even I guess I've seen you in one live stream. I guess that was the time it was happening during MLH, and that is how I even got to know about the whole coaches program. And I'm like, should I apply for it and all the stuff? But then so that's pretty crazy. I just got a message pop up. Pop-ups they are such a big distraction. I just forgot to put the thing on the
always happens on live streams.
Always happens on live stream. But then okay, so that summed up pretty well. So the open source aspect of it, let's dive into that. So you are into the hackathon community. Everything around hackathons is almost about open source, where even if the company, even if they are privatized, they'll be having some open source model to their product, and they'll be like, okay, let's put it down to the hackathon and let's let the engineers or the students let them try stuff with it. So and I also understand from speaking to a lot of folks that open source means the definition changes from person to person. So what is open source for you? And then I have a lot of follow-ups. So yeah. So what is open source for you?
Okay, so I'll go with the most generic definition, right? Open source is anything, like it doesn't have to be software. Anything that's open for everybody in the world to use. And okay, again, like there are like more complications to the commercial use and licenses, but I won't get into it. But open source means that you do something which then helps out the whole community in return. So let's say I'm a designer.
Makes sense.
I make templates and I design them, I make them open source. It's going to help a lot of other people use those templates. So open source to me is just working together with the community, for the community, so that all of us are working and progressing together. Like, so I'm a JavaScript developer, and I would say that a lot of our ecosystem is progressing because so much of the stuff that's happening in the space is open source. You can build stuff so quickly because there are so many node packages that are available there. People are maintaining it at their own cost, obviously through sponsorships and more support. But the whole idea is to build something that further helps other people out. So that is the crux of open source for me, doing things in the community, for the community, and like not having any. In the beginning, you cannot say there's like a clear incentive for it, like any financial motive. It's just that, okay, you found a problem, you want to solve it, and you know other people will also face the problem if you're facing the problem.
Makes sense.
Yes. And as a student and as a person who's still trying to grow as a developer, open source to me is also a great educational background, like educational platform. It's a place where I can learn more about what are good code practices, how I can improve. So it's not just the tools that I'm learning. It's not only just the tools that I'm using to develop my code, but it's also the code that has been written there itself that's helping you to learn and grow. So
makes sense.
That will be like a short answer for what open source is for me.
Yeah, that summed up pretty well. And the thing is, even though the question is very same and it is one line, what is open source to you? The answers are always unique. Like even if we make a compilation of all the speakers that have been there, open source is actually pretty different to everyone in the same sense that they actually mean the same thing, but then it is pretty much aligned to their journey. And also I have to promote my own company as well. We are tackling something similar. The part where you mentioned about incentivization not being directly involved in open source, because that is not the end goal to it, but then incentivization is always important, right? That is how the whole cycle of the life works, and even the maintainers of the projects need some kind of money to sustain. So those are one of the problems that Aviyel is also tackling at the same time. So now coming to your major
actually adding on to the monetization thing, I think like recently we've seen like in the past 1 year that this has become a very important problem to tackle, because there are so many projects that are benefiting from open source projects, but these open source projects are not very well funded. So at times it like burdens the maintainers too much, but it's not really giving them a lot of stuff. Like we saw it happening with Babel, we saw it happening with Log4j. That's like so much stuff that's happening in the open source community space, which is just not fair, because there are actually big organizations making money out of all the software that's being built. And while there are a lot of companies who are trying to like financially support open source software, it's still not enough, which is why this whole conversation has even started and exploded so much. So the fact that we have startups coming into the space, we're trying to like solve this issue in the first place.
Exactly.
Like Medium putting up a paywall doesn't really go ahead with the whole idea of open source. But then again, if I'm just writing articles on a free platform, I'm not really getting more, like financial incentive to work, which ultimately, let's be real, we are adults, and in this universe, everything works through money. So
the thing is, you actually covered the problems that Aviyel is trying to solve.
Yes.
You should if you are available, you should start working for Aviyel. I can hook you up with Joe, our CEO. He'll be pretty excited to talk to you. So, but then those are some of the problems that our founders obviously realized way back. So they got into the whole thing of it around 2019-ish, and it's been almost 3 years for them. But then it's pretty when I got to know about these problems that they exist, so it was pretty fascinating to me. Okay, so there is a company who's actually trying to solve this problem and taking a different approach to it, which was not taken before. That is pretty internal stuff. We are trying to do something with the tokens and the whole DAOs and everything. But then, yeah, it's pretty crazy. And yeah, basically the part where you can work for Aviyel, that offer is still open.
We'll definitely look into it.
Yeah. So okay, so what? So open source projects now, I can ask you, but then let's dive into the React Native part first, because I think that will be exciting for a lot of folks. So how is that whole journey like? That contributing to React Native is not a short thing, irrespective of what the contribution was. Just getting approved and getting into the whole Git of React Native it's a pretty big thing. How is the whole journey? How did it start? And yeah, what made you just get into it?
So the reason why it was even possible for me to like contribute was definitely through the fellowship, because it just made the whole loop a lot easier. We know it's not super simple to contribute to meta open source projects. We know that like often you'll find pull requests that don't get merged, and they have their whole flow, and it's definitely complicated stuff, because organizations dealing with frameworks have a hard time maintaining it, because they're maintaining an open source version as well as an internal version. So things definitely get messy there. So the fellowship definitely made things a lot simpler, because we got to directly work with one of the maintainers who was in the core team of React Native. We got to do weekly meetups with them, and they would guide us through things that would help us out with the whole contribution. So it was definitely exciting to have your first pull request in React Native. Obviously, it was not in like the core C++ code of React Native, but it was definitely interesting to contribute in whatever way we could. Especially because I had been working with React Native for like 2 years. 1.5 years, and just like knowing a technology that you're so excited about, getting a chance to contribute to it was great. So I realized there are paths in every application. So like if you think about React, or if you think about React Native, it feels scary to contribute to them, because you don't feel like you know enough about coding or enough about the intricacies of these frameworks to be able to contribute to it. So
I wouldn't, and I couldn't.
Similarly, we also did not contribute to the main framework as such. But you realize that there are so many things that make a framework possible and make a framework reach wherever it is. So what we worked was on a tester application for React Native. So if a new feature is made and if changes are made, we want to make sure that nothing is breaking changes made by the development team. So now these are things that are more simpler as a concept to grasp, because you can think of it as like something you would do with one of your projects. And so similarly, if there are like frameworks or stuff that you're interested in, you want to contribute in, but you don't think you can directly dive into the code, there are always extra things that you can first get started with. It could be things as simple as writing tutorial blogs or writing like mini example apps, which especially becomes very important for frameworks which are newer, for which we already don't have a lot of projects or examples or code bases available. And even writing simple things like example apps, which just tell people how different features of this app can be used, can be a very interesting experience, because first you'll be helping out newcomers, more people realize the different features, and third, you'll be diving deeper into different aspects of the whole framework. You'll be diving into the different kinds of components, different APIs, what prop methods you have, and what more you could be doing with the framework in general. So that is what I learned throughout those 3 months, that it's not just about being able to contribute to the core functionality, but also so much of the other stuff that makes a framework popular and successful. That was definitely like a nice learning experience that you won't ever start from the main code, and it's nice to aim for that, but know where to start from.
Well, I especially interacting, like I imagine the people who must be getting into the whole contributing part of fellowship, they might be very good profiles, but then they still might have those thing about this is actually a pretty big deal. It's React Native at the end of the day. When you talk about JavaScript, it is either React Native or Angular you get started with. So it's a pretty big thing. So even getting the chance to interact with one of the core maintainers and to work with them. So that must have been a pretty big deal.
It was a very
because,
cool deal.
yeah,
First day I almost thought I could not believe I'm talking to somebody who's like in the core team of React Native.
exactly.
They are mentioning me. They know me by my
Yeah.
name. It feels surreal.
Exactly.
And
Yeah. Like the thing is, like the talk show that that we discussed about, it was never supposed to be about. It was actually supposed to be your journey, right? Because now the thing is, whenever you talk, right, I'm able to resonate it with the things that we are doing at Aviyel too now, because this is something similar that we are doing. The projects that we onboard with us, they are basically partner projects, and they are all open source. So at the same time, we also look for quality contributions to it, right? And the people who are with us, there was this guy named Rakshit who. There's this Hopscotch open source project called Hopscotch. He made contribution after getting into the whole Aviyel ecosystem. That was pretty crazy. So yeah, I mean that is what resonated with me, and that is also one of the problems that we are trying to solve, where we make the gap of making core good contributions very simpler, because we know people can do it, but then there's a huge journey to it, right? There's a huge gap in the bridge that a lot of people it kind of becomes a battle to even get into their visions of PRs and all those stuff. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. So yeah, now let's talk about, okay, so by the end of it, anybody with your profile would actually, without any clue, hands on the eyes, they would jump into developer relations, because you have such a cool portfolio, right? That is, even if you don't call yourself a developer, that is exactly what you've been doing for a very long time now. Yeah, and 2 years is actually pretty long, given that you have not even graduated. Yeah. So how was the whole journey into the whole CERN thing? Because CERN is very scientific, very technical, not similar to something that you were already doing. I mean, obviously you're still doing it but then you're also concentrating on CERN. So how did that switch happen, and how was the whole experience?
So CERN happened. So I got my offer from CERN last December, and it was all quite unexpected. Like even me finding that a role exists. I'd obviously heard about Open Lab before. So for people who are listening, maybe I'll advertise the opportunity, because it's a cool opportunity. Anybody can apply. And Open Lab is CERN's program where they get 40 people from all over the world to come and contribute, work, first of all, come to Switzerland, work at CERN, and then work on one of their open source projects. And many of these open source projects are super cool. They deal with a lot of scientific physics stuff that's happening, and all the computation that sort of supports it. So it's a really cool program, and the projects are very interesting. And the thing is that mostly Open Lab students are like university students, right? And it's a great first opportunity to be able to work on that. So that is one program that I'd heard about. And after my summer ended, and I was just in the middle of I had a small break before university was supposed to begin. And I was going through the careers website, because I thought why not? What else do we have at CERN? It's a very random thing. If I had not gone through the careers portion of their website, would not be here. And then I found that they had this program called the Technical Student Program, which is what I'm participating in right now. And this program can last from 4 to 14 months. So I found that
3 years.
No, 4 to 14 months.
Almost. Oh, 4 to 14 months. Okay. Yeah, sorry.
So that would be a year. And I was that is super cool. Being able to work properly full time at CERN for 1 year and contributing to the projects there, that would be an interesting opportunity. And I thought, what are the chances that, I just sent in my application. I was whatever, we'll see what happens. And 3 months later, I get an email that, we would like to have a video call with you. And then I do a small interview, I talk to people. And December, I have the offer to come work here for 1 year. So that is how it happened. So scrolling through careers websites. So just in case there are organizations you're interested in, look at their careers page. And the shift in the role was not that big, because what I'm doing here is still web development. I'm still doing software engineering,
Okay.
So it's sort of similar. The stuff what I'm doing here is still similar, but the application of whatever I'm doing is very new. When I came here, I got these two guides
Okay.
which were like 40 and 80 pages long about the different cooling and ventilation systems that we have in different particle accelerators. So the ventilation system guide,
Okay.
it started with talking a bit about the Large Hadron Collider, LHC. And it started talking about, what's the
Okay.
structure like, where the different ventilation systems are. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm reading this. Even though I'm not directly working with LHC, or I'm not directly installing ventilation systems, just the fact that my work in some way has a contribution there just made me realize the
Yeah, exactly.
impact
Yeah.
of work that I've been doing, which is something I
Makes
often
sense.
feel lacks when you're working in such a big organization. Um,
Yeah.
so, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean that to understand at a pretty early age, it's pretty unique too, because it's only after, like, usually, like, what I've seen is people enter into FANG, they work for their 2 years, 3 years. If they have a background where they've already been into hackathons and all the ecosystem, they're like, okay, this cannot be done in those companies as well. If you are just core software developer, they're like, okay, let's leave, let's go to the startup. That is how we're there. That is how the whole cycle works. But then prioritizing and making sure that your work has some kind of impact at such an early age is pretty good, right? It's pretty unique too.
But isn't that
Yeah,
what all of
inspiring.
us are
Pretty
looking
inspiring.
for? Like, I know we want to earn money, we want to
In
work, but at the end of the day, you do end
Yeah,
up asking yourself, what is my work getting done? Like, what's happening? What's the bigger picture out here?
so true.
So,
Yeah,
yeah, I just started looking into it
yeah,
after last summer. And it's still something that I'm struggling with. I'm still trying to find what's the right place where I want to be in, what's the sort of impact that I want my work, even on a tiny scale, to bring. Which is why I found the DevRel community to be so good. Because at the end, it feels, because you're
yeah,
directly communicating with people, and even if it's like a very, very tiny impact
yeah.
you're making on somebody, it feels extremely fulfilling. Like, I remember, like,
Yes,
last
yeah.
semester, I did this simple workshop in a hackathon with high school students. And I truly love this hackathon. It's a female-centered hackathon, all high school students.
Okay,
And they managed to get like 500 high school girls to participate in a hackathon, which is not an easy, like,
that's pretty
getting
crazy.
such a big attendance number,
Yeah,
getting more girls into STEM, everything I deeply relate with. And I did this tiny workshop with them, 45 minutes long, on like how to pitch. And it was such a great experience because you had all of these enthusiastic girls talking about their ideas, pitching them, and like listening to you so carefully and
yeah.
attentively. I was like, this is the reason why, I entered this hackathon and DevRel space to begin with. Because it's so fulfilling and
Makes
yeah.
sense. Yeah, it makes you happy at the end of the day, knowing that you've impacted many lives. But then even if you impact one life, it makes you happy, right? That at least you put someone on the right path. If not the right path, at least you paved a little way for them to, just go on and check it out for
Yeah.
themselves. So, I mean, that covers basically everything we wanted to talk about, and we spotted on the time that you wanted. That was pretty, yeah, that was pretty brief, pretty on point. Everything was pretty good. I mean, yeah, good podcast, good session. But then what's next for you? Like, everybody would like to know what is next for you. A little sneak peek into the next roles that you'll be looking forward to, or any dream roles that you
Okay.
have as of now.
There are a lot of projects/ideas in my mind that I'm trying to look at. So what my next role officially would be is something I'm still not sure, because I have to find the right balance between sustaining yourself as a fresh graduate and working for a company whose vision you relate with. So that's something I've postponed for like after I graduate. Till then, I'm going to experiment a bit in the space. A few things I'm excited about exploring for the next year is quantum tech and med tech. So how we can use, I know this is going to all come down to data science and machine learning, and that's a space that,
Data science,
and that's a space I've
absolutely.
not explored a lot, but the medical tech side is something I would definitely want to like know more about, dive into, maybe do a small internship to get a sense of what this space looks like. That's more on the what I would like to like do completely in the future thing. It's the sort of tech that I'm excited and interested in right now. But a few things that I have going on in my mind that I'm maybe putting here as a shout out if anybody has other ideas, if you would like to do a small collab, is I'm working on this we can call this open source platform for science communicators. So it's going to be a repository of a lot of information, scientific documents, articles, templates, images. There are a lot of work that science communicators are doing on a daily basis, and there's not like a specific community or space for them out there. So it's a small project, it's a personal project that I'm working on. And we're trying to build this social/collaborative space for science communicators. And I've realized that because of the pandemic and because of all the climate calamities that we have happening around, it makes sense to give a more proper place to science communicators to get their work out there.
Makes sense, yeah. Like 2 years back, please continue. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. So 2 years back when I was into the whole data science thing, especially what I felt was writing research papers on your own on similar projects that have been already done in the medtech space was actually a pretty big thing. So I was dealing with something related to kidney stones and detecting them through various Gaussian lapses, something similar, and algorithms.
Yeah.
So I was supposed to actually connect with a lot of folks in the research space, and it is actually pretty difficult. There are websites where you can find the research papers and the information about them, but then contacting them and getting in touch with them is actually pretty hard. It's not that easy. So that actually solves a lot of it's a mini startup of your own if you go ahead with it.
We intend to make it like a small project, but I know it might head in the startup direction. But I hope to so this is a project I've been talking about for 6-7 months now. I've been trying to make progress in it, but personal projects sometimes get very hard to like work on, especially when you're doing a full-time job and other part-time roles with it, right? So, but it's something that we definitely want to get out there, because a lot of time what happens is that you have science communicators refining a lot of the work, simplifying it and bringing it out to the people, but other science communicators are not aware of the work that's happening, and it's just like we are duplicating a lot of work, or it would just be easier if we got somebody.
Makes sense.
So it at the end of the day makes sense to create a better community for everybody, where you can collaborate on your work together. And so that's one thing. The other thing for which I need like a bigger shout out is I'm trying to a very small video series sort of thing, where I want to get in touch with more women in STEM who are maybe working as a head of engineering in startups or organizations, or they're leading their own startups, and I want to talk about their stories and the work that they're doing. I'm open to doing podcasts like this online. I'm also open to like visiting them across EU and talking to them. So if anybody listening to this knows of like badass women who are doing great work in STEM, please drop me their profiles. It will be really good.
You can do that. Sorry. You can do that on Aviyel's platform itself. I mean,
that
you can host
cool.
it. You don't mind. You can take it on our platform itself. You have the whole thing. You can take it up. You can talk to people and take it up. Yeah, we can do that. We can definitely do that. And we'll market it for you. We'll help you with marketing.
That sounds like a great thing, and I will definitely talk more about it.
We'll talk about backstage. But then
there are different formats I'm thinking of. So it's definitely something in the run for me for my future. Like I really want to bring out more stories, because I think stories connect with people, and they really help you find the right role models you're looking for.
Makes sense. Definitely. Let's talk backstage.
Definitely.
So do we have any questions from audiences, if any? I don't think so, because the audiences, they are pretty, I mean, I know a few of them. I know a lot of them. Almost everyone. A few of them. They've been pretty consistent in joining. So the thing is, the way the talk flow was done was it was supposed to be very basic, where it is the sort of questions that anybody in the audience would ask, right?
Yeah,
how did you start? True. How is the whole journey? So I think it covers basically everything. Now, the things that anybody can ask is the tiny itsy bitsy details, I guess. But then I guess this ends a podcast. Any closing lines from your side?
Well, if you did tune into this, then thank you for listening to me. That's all I'd say.
Yeah, definitely. Like, given it's IST, thank you. It's evening in CET, pretty cold
Yeah.
there. Thank you again. But then, yeah, thanks a lot, Manya, for joining in. It's been almost 2 months that we are planning. Some things on my side, some things on your side. But then, yeah,
Yeah,
it's been actually really great. A very nice conversation, short,
definitely.
nice conversation. I loved it. I loved the conversation. But then, yeah, thanks again for joining. Yeah, see you backstage.
Enjoyed talking to you. See you. Bye bye.